Hello, everybody out there, and welcome to another Fundamentalist Fails. It's Friday, and that's my favorite day just because I get to laugh at fundamentalists. And today we have a cracker. Yes, that means a different thing in Australia, but maybe I'm using the same definition in America. So Frank Turek. I'll get to him later. First, I just came over from the Kentucky Atheist. What a great channel. What a fantastic channel. Great guy, really personable. I've had many great conversations with him. I really want to link him. And he's also doing the ARC protest. So protesting that ridiculous ARC in, what's it called? The ARC encounter, I think it's called. Mostly because it's in Kentucky, and so is, strangely enough, the Kentucky Atheist. And it was used and built partially using taxpayer money, which sort of is a very, very big thing sticking in people's throats. Because when you're seeing religions make hand over fist money from donations and things, it stings to have the government come in and help prop them up, because they don't prop up the government. They don't pay taxes. And I understand why they don't. It's sort of this rule that's been enshrined since the beginning of Western society that churches, it all goes back to this traditional thing that churches are for God, so they don't give their money to the king or to the nobles or to the secular or the aristocracy that was in power at the time. And they don't get to be ordered around so much by the aristocracy, but there was a lot of power dynamics between the church and the state or the aristocracy. And so we've come out of this with this weird tradition that churches don't pay tax. And it's like that in my country. It's probably like that in your country. I don't know where you're from. But the whole idea that the government would come in and help them build a religious icon or religious profit-making sort of structure is heinously unfair, because they do not pay any tax. And to sort of, so I really think that a lot of the churches should pay tax. I think that they should be treated just like any other non-profit organization, that if they are serving the community and they're actually doing good things, because some churches do good things. That's, I give credit where credit is due. Some of them do help people. Okay, fantastic. You should have to show that to get a tax exemption status, just like everybody else who's doing volunteer work, who's doing non-profit, has to show that. Because some of these churches make the people that run them, or their owners, the people that run them, horrendously wealthy, and they do not give back to the community. They just take. And I think that Answers in Genesis and the creation ministries and places like this, Ken Ham's setup is absolutely one of those. It really, the sting is that not only do they provide a lot of disinformation as far as science is concerned, and a lot of trick a lot of people into thinking they're really doing science when they're absolutely not, they also get tax breaks while doing so, which is horrendous. And I really loved John Oliver's stance on this, where he made up a church to see how little oversight there is, how much you could get away with saying. And you can say almost anything. You can promise to cure disease. You can promise to, have people's lives get infinitely better over essentially no time, as long as they send you money, really exploiting people. And that exploitation, I think, is where we should say, hey, there shouldn't be a tax break for exploiting people. Absolutely horrible. But what I might do, and so this is a main ARC encounter. People asked, I know somebody asked, why would he do that? What's the point of the ARC encounter? I think it's more symbolic. It is sort of, I think there's something about physically protesting. It's very uplifting. I've been to many protests in my day. It's uplifting. You get that sense of community. You get that sense of not being alone in your outrage. It's a healthy outlet to express your anger at the government without, damaging anybody or damaging property. It's just a good way to, shout your displeasure at the government. Very healthy thing to do is express yourself, and it doesn't cause any harm except for maybe, hurt feelings, and that's their problem. If you're hurt by somebody protesting, well, that's your problem, really. And it also, physical protesting also lets the government reminds them who's actually in charge. A lot of politicians won't pay any attention until they see a crowd of, 10, 20,000 people, and suddenly it's not an abstract concept anymore. I suppose that's like in my city. We've had rather large protests, like hundreds of thousands kind of thing, and they do hit hard. Maybe sometimes they do, maybe sometimes they don't. I don't know, but it certainly feels better, and it feels like it has some kind of impact. But I want to run Joe's ad first off, because I kept forgetting to do it. So that's my bad. Sorry, Joe, if you are listening or watching later. Sorry, mate. It kept sort of kept failing on that. So I want to run Joe's ad first. So just let me go. Okay. Yeah, so if you do want to support Joe, I'm going to put a link to his ad. All of the links for supporting him are in the thing. Yes, you did. Yes, Jess made that. Amazing work. Just wonderful. Like, absolutely fantastic. Really impressed, Jess. Like, absolutely. Yep, the protest is on. I'm going to say a few shout outs. Hello, Deviant. Hello, Jess. Always welcome. Hey, Ralph. Good to see you, mate. Ulf, yeah, I've seen your hellos in the comments. Thanks, Ulf. You know what? It brings a smile to my face every time I see it. Like, it's because it's just hello. You're not doing anything. Look, if you want to say hello in the comments, I love seeing hellos in the comments. Oh yeah, Left-Handed Jedi. Always a pleasure to see you, Marty. Much love. Yeah, I've got awesome people in chat. Phantom, Big Bad Mama. Yeah, no, it's great work by Asteroid. Yeah, absolutely professional. I do agree. Like, it's amazing. I always get really impressed with people that can do that, because yeah, I'm trying to learn, but it's hard. It's rough. It's rough. It is rough. But yeah, the link. Don't let me forget the link. Okay. And that is the link to the video. So just in the description of the video, you'll find all the links there. You can find out more information. I would be jealous, except I'm not in that country, and I feel happy about that, to be honest with you. I'm sorry, my US friends. I would love to feel jealous of your country at the moment, but I kind of don't. I kind of don't, because yeah, it's a mess. It's an absolute mess. I can't believe what's coming out of that country. And so, really, I want to talk about the separation of church and state. Separation of church and state. It's one of those things that we're seeing more under attack now than ever, and it's incredibly worrying. How's morning going? It's a little hot, but I'm feeling good. I'm feeling fantastic, actually. I got up a bit earlier today, and for some reason I had a bit of energy. I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go for it. And all the best to your daughter. Hi, Pinworm. Good to see you, mate. So the separation of church and state was kind of, it is one of those traditions that kind of hark back to the old feudalist system as well, that the people of the cloth, or the church, didn't tell sort of the nobles what to do, and the nobles didn't tell the church what to do, mostly because although the nobles were placed there on the endorsement of God or the church, they had the army to, really sort of, do anything. So it kind of became this sort of balance of power that occurred, the church and the nobles. But now we sort of see it as any time that the church, like you have an established religion within some sort of governing body or some sort of authority, what always happens is that church or that religion disadvantages all the other people out there, all the other religions, all the other denominations. Whoever isn't them, they will prioritize their group. So what does this mean? It means that we just can't have one group in there, because inevitably it will lead to a destruction of the social contract, which is sort of the idea that, hey, you uphold my rights and we all have the same rights, and I will do what the government says to do, or I will obey the laws of the country as long as there are rights that you uphold. And those rights are consistent among everybody. And that's the whole basis of our government and our system that we have. Now, back in the day when everybody was Christian, sure, it may have worked that the church was involved with the government because there was only Christians. But now we've sort of moved into a pluralistic society. We can't do that anymore, because as soon as you start prioritizing one religion above another, that religion will not follow the social contract anymore, because the social contract's been broken. And that's a problem. That's a real problem. And so this push to have, hey, we're going to get Christianity back in the government, it's like the Muslims, the atheists, the Buddhists, they're not going to tolerate your sort of religious persecution, because the entire system is based upon equality. And so I don't know what they're thinking, because it will never go back to the way that it was. And I don't think that they really want it to, because as soon as you put in an evangelical, suddenly all of the Catholics are really upset. When it's Catholic, all of the Eastern Orthodox are upset. When it's any denomination, the other ones get upset. The whole point behind America not being a secular country was that the Puritans were destroying the Quakers. It was to stop fighting among the Christians themselves. And that's exactly what will happen, because if the fundamentalists get in there, they're going to clamp down on things that the others don't believe in. The others won't. It's just going to be a mess. So that's why it's really, really, really important. Yeah. Oh, it's not about speaking freely, Joe. It's about who is allowed to have power in the government. So you remember the whole thing that America originally left the British Commonwealth for. It was taxation without representation. It was, we are contributing to the society, but we are not represented in them. Right? That's the problem. That if you have a Christian government, that all the other religions and all the other denominations will be saying, hey, we pay and we help the country, but we aren't being represented. That's the problem. And so that doesn't get solved by just being able to speak freely. You must have some sort of suffrage to be able to choose the government that you're being controlled by. Hello from Sweden in the middle of the night. Hey, Sweden, one of my favorite countries. It's also awesome. You get a lot of Swedes? Okay, cool. But today we're talking about Frank Turek. And Frank Turek, he's an interesting one. A lot of people denigrate him. I don't think he's the worst. I mean, I've seen some really bad apologists, but he's certainly not the best either. He's sort of, I would call him a mid-range one. Interestingly enough, he actually started out as he sort of had a degree in business management, I believe. Right. I might just look up his profile, but he definitely didn't start out, as a minister or anything like that. Definitely not. He started out as a businessman first and foremost. So I think that Turek's sort of been really horrible. Yeah, he was a naval flight officer, and then he got a Master of Public Administration. Yeah, so public administration. So, sort of leadership roles on public service, rather much like business administration kind of thing. And then he got a doctorate in ministry from Southern Evangelical Seminary. So he definitely did get some qualifications in apologetics. I don't know how how accredited that is. I have no idea. I presume it is an accredited university or college. It is a seminary. So I don't know. It's really weird. And Frank Turek's been one that's been speaking very outspokenly about gay people, about trans people, being very, very critical and kind of really nasty about it. He's also someone that has been highly criticized for basically getting gender affirming care and then trying to deny it to other people. So he did have, I think the technical term is man boobs, and he had those reduced to make him feel more like a man because he said it looked just weird. So that is gender affirming care. And the irony is that he says that gender affirming care shouldn't be a thing. So yeah, it's yeah, no, you're right, Guitar Dog. It is horrible, but I think that he's definitely not the worst. Definitely not the worst. Like when the bottom end is like Darth Dawkins and, Jim Bob and Andrew Wilson. He's definitely not the worst, but he's certainly not the best, and he's an awful person. He sort of goes up against, and here's what I wanted to talk about. He goes up against people like Alex O'Connor, who absolutely railroad, like Alex O'Connor was just on another level kind of thing. He was just making Frank look like he had no idea and trying to keep up. But I would imagine someone like Alex O'Connor would do that to a lot of people, probably myself included. Alex O'Connor is very, very good at what he does. I mean, I would agree with him on a lot of things, but some things I wouldn't. I would be hard pressed to keep up in the area of philosophy, for instance, because he is well trained in philosophy. But don't forget that Frank Turek isn't. Okay, he isn't well trained in philosophy. He is just apologetics is what he's done. And I don't think apologetics gets you to where you want to go when talking about whether you should believe in a God, because that's a highly, highly specialized field in epistemology. And all epistemology is, if you're unfamiliar with the term, is the reasons why you believe in what you believe, or the reasons how you know what you know. I don't think he's that well versed in that. Apologetics is a strange one. I think it's not exactly epistemology. It might contain some of it, but really what it is you've got a belief. Apologetics is generally just how to fit things into your belief, how to find things to support what you already believed. And I think that's a big problem. And it's why deconstruction sort of tears it apart, because when we get down to it, can we absolutely know anything? I think maybe one or two things. At maximum, we can absolutely know with, no absolute confidence, with no hesitation at all. I mean, some things we're really positively sure of, but absolute certainty means that you cannot be wrong. And that's essentially what a fundamentalist is. Somebody with a fundamentalist view of the Bible argues for its inerrancy, and Frank Turek does that. But the real thing that Frank Turek does is something that he kind of, I'm going to say that he probably picked it up from Ray Comfort. He basically goes to colleges and stuff and gives lectures and then answers questions. And I want to focus on that. There's a lot of other videos while I was researching, I saw and I watched. You could pick apart his videos for what they are. And I might do some of that. I do want to start picking apart stuff because it seems to be what I'm good at. So sticking to what I'm good at, I might pick apart some of his stuff. But I think that the ones that I really want to do today are the ones where he's talking to college kids. So it's kind of telling to me when you are an apologist or you are somebody with a doctorate from a seminary and you don't talk to people in the field a lot, or related fields a lot, like Alex O'Connor. He's done a couple of things with him, but he's not really going and talking to prominent atheists, prominent philosophers, these type of people. Scientists he doesn't talk to. He really talks to college kids, and I always find that suspicious. The Neckles do the same. The Neckles. I never know how to pronounce that. But there's Cliff and Stuart Neckley, and they go and talk to college kids as well. I always find it highly suspicious, because these are sort of college and university are the times where you're basically just sort of examining outside your beliefs, outside your, the ones formed in your household, the ones formed in your childhood and teenage years growing up. They're sort of looking out and saying, hey, what are the other options for what I believe? Am I, does this cut it when I go out into the real world? Is this something people talk? You're really trying to find out where you're believing and what you're believing. So I always find it really suspicious that when apologists really just focus on kids that haven't formed their belief structures yet, or they're sort of in the process of doing so. A lot of them give a lot of pushback, but I always kind of find it highly suspicious. So Frank does a lot of this. I've got a few clips of him. I don't know how long it'll last for, but I do want to go through them and sort of show, because these are the ones, and I want to point this out at the start. Okay, I want to point this out at the start, because these are the clips that he's highlighted on his YouTube channel. So presumably these were the best clips he could find for himself. And when these, I want to stress this, when these are the best clips you can find, you've got a problem, because he doesn't do that well. Okay, I'll spoiler alert, he is not fantastic. And so if these are the best ones, I can only imagine how horribly some of the other ones have gone. Because, if any are going to go on his YouTube channel, it's going to be the best ones. Now, this first one is Mormon challenges Frank on biblical inerrancy. And I want you to, so that's the title, A Mormon Challenges Frank on Biblical Inerrancy. And I think it's important to know the title, because this is specifically about biblical inerrancy. And so with that in mind, I want you to keep in mind, what does Frank see as the rebuttal for his biblical inerrancy claim? What does he see as him being victorious over biblical inerrancy? But there's a lot of substance here, so I really want to play it and get into it.
Being here, I'm a big fan. I've read 3 out of your 4 books here up on the screen. I agree with probably 95% of your presentation today. Really good.
Good, because I only agree with 93%.
Yeah, I mean, he cracks jokes. That's mildly funny. Frank, well done. You're a funny man. He only agrees with 93%. Yeah. I think that in doing presentations, we can't see the video. We can't see the video. Really? Are you joking? Can anyone see the video? Hang on a sec. I'll sort this out. Can I? Oh, you're right. You're absolutely right. You cannot see the video. What's going on? Remove. Add to stage. Hello? Okay, that's weird. Is there something? Okay. StreamYard? What's up? What's up, StreamYard? What's up? Okay, let me remove that. Get rid of the entire thing. I will reload it back up and share it again. Wow. Wow. Give me one sec. We have technical problems. Let's see. I wonder why that's happening. Yeah, no, see, Frank, unfortunately. Yeah, that's not a win. Seeing Frank is not a win. Okay, how are we doing? Somebody fill me in. Have we won? Are we successful? Have we succeeded? We haven't. What the hell? Okay, I'm very confused, but I have a way around this. Hmm. Does that work? Does that show something? That does show something. Okay, so that view works. How about that view? Does that view work? That view is now working. Oh, wow. Okay. Slight technical problems. My apologies, everybody. I don't know what StreamYard did. They had a Turek. They just did a Turek and completely screwed it up. Yes, absolutely.
Fan. I've read 3 out of your 4 books here up on the screen. I agree with probably 95% of your presentation today. Really good.
Good, because I only agree with 93%.
Good.
Excellent.
I'm a Latter-day Saint, also known as a Mormon.
Yes.
And one of the things
I think they don't like being called Mormons. They like being called Latter-day Saints. I'm not sure why. I mean, they're Mormons. I think it's because the Mormons had a bit of problems with, people abusing younger people. So, that was a problem and they wanted to get away from it. So, yeah. Oh, whoa. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Davian.
that prevents me from being an evangelical or Protestant Christian is the tradition of sola scriptura. Do you accept sola scriptura?
It properly defined.
Okay.
Yeah, so he accepts his version of sola scriptura. Now, I can't remember what this is. Sola scriptura. It's the Protestant denomination, yes. It's a Christian doctrine that states that the Bible is the sole authority for Christian faith and practice. Right. It means by scripture alone. So that basically, it basically separates them from the Catholics who believe that the church, you can get to that authority through the church, basically. So that's the Protestants want sola scriptura to be their, authority, which doesn't come from a church. It comes from you directly interacting in the Bible, with the Bible, from the Bible. However, Bibling it up.
Would you agree with sola scriptura being that the Bible, the 66 books of the Protestant canon, are the sole infallible rule of faith and practice for Christians?
No,
okay,
not defined that way.
Okay, tell me how you would describe
because sola scriptura means, and this was typically a debate between Catholics and Protestants, that for faith and practice, the scriptures are our authority, not church councils, not tradition, not popes. But sola scriptura itself technically isn't quite enough, because in order to understand what's in the scriptures, you need reason, you need logic, you need context. So there.
Well, I don't think they usually demonstrate a lot of that. I think that when you look at God logically, especially the Trinity, and I pointed this out on a recent debate, the Trinity is completely illogical. I've never had that explained to me in a way that makes any sense. So you have three persons, one entity. The problem is that persons are an entity. They absolutely are. I'm a person. I am also an entity. A person is a subcategory of entity. Like anything can be an entity, but a person is something sort of specific about that. So, so they're basically saying it's 3 entities, which are people, but it's only one entity, and 3 is not 1. So it's both 1 and not 1 at the same time. If you look at it logically, it makes no sense whatsoever. If it was that these 3 persons were part of the one entity, totally works, right? Like, so I've got an arm that's part of me, or a handle that's part of this coffee cup. If you've got three people that form one council, that's fine. That's no problem with that. But they're not, and that's the problem.
Something in theology you may be aware of. Hey,
Oh, so the way that this is made up is via faith, right? Like that is how they make up that lack of evidence, lack of logic, lack of reason, lack of anything, is just fill it in with faith. Faith, the spac filler of religion.
Called prolegomena. That's what you do before you do theology. You have to know logic. You have to know cause and effect. You have to know that words mean things, grammar, this kind of thing. That's prolegomena. You need to do that to read an article on the internet, much less the Bible.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's not sort of saying where understanding comes from. It's sort of saying where authority comes from. And I think this is where Frank's muddying the water a little bit, because he's sort of saying, hey, it's not enough just to have sola scriptura. You have to also have this background knowledge of how to read and how to write and how to interpret words and how to yeah, I get that, but that doesn't give you authority, because the idea that the authority comes from the reading of the Bible and you can get your own authority through yourself, which was Luther's whole thing, it doesn't come from just knowing these things beforehand. That's sort of already built in with the idea of reading the Bible. I think Turek's I'm not sure where he's going with this, to be honest with you.
So that's great. I guess
it's natural revelation, in other words.
My question more so
natural revelation? I'm not sure what he means by that. Natural revelation. I mean, I think it's what is it? General revelation? Natural revelation. Yeah, so that's as I thought. It's the God's self-disclosure through. Oh, it's also known as general revelation. So yeah, absolutely. So he's talking about general revelation, but I don't know. That's sort of the beauty of nature and the cycles of the earth and how complex humans are. That's generally general or natural revelation. So I'm not 100% sure though. I mean, hey, I think he's making that word work. I think that the Bible would probably be special revelation, but I'm not an apologist, so I certainly have to check with that one.
Goes around the idea of the
Sally's
scriptures being infallible.
Halt my prayers.
Yes.
Do you posit that as a theological claim, or do you have evidence for that, or I'm wondering about your argument?
I posit it on the authority of Jesus.
Okay, so,
because Jesus said the Old Testament is the Word of God, and He promised the New Testament. And I just have a personal policy, Hayden. If somebody predicts and accomplishes his own resurrection from the dead, I just trust whatever the guy says.
Can you help me understand what you mean? Jesus said that the New Testament would be infallible?
Okay, so basically he's sort of saying, hey, the Old Testament was said to be infallible, and the New Testament is infallible as well. And so the Mormon's basically asking him, the Latter-day Saint is asking him, how do you know that did Jesus say that the New Testament was infallible? Well, of course, Jesus never said that, because the New Testament hadn't been written, right? We're talking about something written after the death of the guy. Like, it couldn't possibly be said by Jesus to be infallible. It can't be. I've enjoyed using Exodus 4:22, Safari, against Christians lately. Thus says Yahweh, Israel is my firstborn son, not Jesus. Yeah? Was Jesus supposed to be the firstborn son? I'm not sure about that one, Tenebris, whether he's supposed to be the son of God or, firstborn son. But yeah, it would certainly suggest, unless, of course, you're an apologist and you would go, oh yeah, that one's just hyperbole. That's just metaphor for that one. Not all the rest, but for that one,
Is that your position?
Well, he said the scriptures are infallible.
Okay.
And
yeah, but he wasn't talking about the New Testament scriptures. He was talking about the Old Testament. So that he was talking about the scriptures, the Jewish scriptures, which were the Old Testament, the Septuagint and things like that, right? Like all of these he was talking about them because those were the only ones that existed at the time.
Implication is the Old Testament scriptures were at his day, but he promised his disciples he would lead them into all truth and bring to their remembrance everything he said. And
yeah, and he sort of promised it before all of them would be dead. So how did that one turn out, buddy? It was imminent, according to him. It was imminent. I mean, 2,000 years later, is it still imminent? I don't. If 2,000 years is your idea of imminent on a human, that's ridiculous.
So they ultimately would write it down, and then those people were confirmed by miracles. And Peter himself actually refers to Paul's letters as scripture.
How were those people confirmed by miracles? I'm not sure. What miracles did the apostles do? Did they do any miracles? According to the Bible, they performed miracles as healing the sick, casting out demons, and raising the dead. Okay. The apostles performed 3 jailbreaks? What? A jailbreak's miracles? Not sure about that one, champ. Yeah, I don't know about that. But, I wouldn't trust the person who's claiming to do the miracles to sort of, say, hey, I did miracles. Okay. Did anybody else see these miracles apart from the people claiming they did them? And we'll get into that later because this gets fascinating. I don't know. I find it fascinating because we've got 2 people here. And of course, the Mormon or the Latter-day Saint, I'm sorry, not a Mormon at all. Can't be. They're terrible people. Has to be a Latter-day Saint. He basically wants to say, well, I believe in the Bible and stuff, but I also believe in these other books. And you can see him angling for it. And it does, Frank's not happy that he's angling for, the Book of Mormon and all of the Nephi stuff and things like that.
Does Christ ever say the scriptures are infallible? I'm hung up on this infallibility.
Yes, if you go to John 10:38, he says the scripture cannot be broken.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that doesn't say infallible, right?
Yes. Also, he says to the Sadducees or the Pharisees, I'm trying to remember which, when he says, probably the Sadducees, because they didn't believe in the resurrection, and that's why they were sad, you see.
Why didn't they believe in the resurrection? I mean, according to one account, dead people rose up from their grave and wandered around the city, Frank. Why wouldn't they believe in it? This is the thing that bewilders everybody. It's sort of, they talk about these events happening and all of this really strong evidence, but people at the time didn't believe it, who were there in the city. How can this be? Who knows? It's all a mystery.
You'll never forget that, right? He says to them, you err not knowing the scriptures. It would be odd to say you err not knowing the scriptures if the scriptures also err, wouldn't it?
Well, no, because he's talking about the Jewish, the Old Testament, the Jewish scripture, the Torah. He's talking about the previous scriptures. And this Mormon, you're right, he did call himself a Mormon, so I should be fine calling him a Mormon. He's basically saying the same. Like, it doesn't actually say, Jesus doesn't actually say that it's inerrant. So where are you getting the inerrant from? Where are you getting the infallibility from? Because Turek is a fundamentalist. He believes that the scriptures are inerrant.
Do the scriptures need to be infallible? Or, like, I still don't...
Why are you having a problem with infallibility? Because you want to add the Book of Mormon?
Yeah, there we go. And Frank's like, oh, I don't like this. You want to add the Book of Mormon to this? Well, yeah. So the whole point is, if it's the old scriptures that are infallible, and another person's just come along and added to the infallible scriptures with the New Testament, what stops the Mormon from adding another book, the Book of Mormon, that God dished out to Joseph Smith? What's the problem? So that's his perspective as a Mormon. And Frank's getting annoyed because he can't show that, there was any claim by Jesus that his scriptures would be infallible and therefore couldn't be added to it. There's no mention that it would be the last scriptures. There's no mention that it would be, anything of the sort. So he's sort of saying, the Mormon's sort of saying, well, what makes yours infallible, but mine not? And as an atheist, I'm like, yeah, I think they're both fallible. I think they're both nonsense. Oh, and by the way, I think the Old Testament's nonsense as well. I think all of them are fallible. But Frank doesn't think so.
Not necessarily. We don't believe the Book of Mormon is infallible either, right? We don't believe, the standard default position is that humans are fallible. Therefore, anything we produce is fallible.
Oh, that's not true.
Okay. I'm not saying we can't say things that are true.
Because then the statement you just made
it could be
has
fallible.
to be wrong.
No, it doesn't have to be wrong, Frank. This is where Frank gets into trouble, when he starts to try and think in terms of philosophy and logic. So he says, well, we don't think our books are infallible. And so Frank sort of says, well, that means if you don't think anything can be infallible, what you said is not true, right? Because there's a big difference. And this is what I started talking about in recent debate, is black and white fallacy. What that means is it's all or nothing, right? Like you have absolute knowledge or you don't know anything. Okay. And this is what fundamentalists do. They basically say, if you don't have absolute knowledge, then you don't know anything. And the only way you can have absolute knowledge is through somebody that has absolute knowledge. But it's black and white thinking. I could be right on a lot of things and wrong on others. It doesn't mean that. And just because I have sort of a 99% confidence in something doesn't mean that I don't know it at all. I have a high confidence in it. So Frank's sort of using a tactic here of, well, unless you claim absolute certainty, you're wrong on everything. No, Frank, he could be right on that. He could be right that you're wearing glasses. He could be right, he could be right that, your watch is made in a certain place. There's things he can be right on, even though he's fallible. He can make mistakes, right? It doesn't mean that if it's not infallible, everything about it is wrong. No, that's not what we're talking about. And I think that I don't know how he came up with this, because he says it with all sincerity. And it is really, I know Frank's not a presuppositionalist, or at least I don't think so. I think he is a evidentialist, but it sounds very presuppy because that's the kind of nonsense they do.
Not necessarily. It could
that's
be,
right. Not necessarily.
It could be wrong.
It could be. That's right.
I can say things that are true, say things that are false.
That's right.
So do you think we need an infallible source, or
well, if God is the standard of truth, and that's of course what everyone knows to be God, yes, he's going to produce a revelation that doesn't have errors in it. We may misunderstand it.
Okay, so that's my question.
Yeah, and here's the problem. We know that the Bible has errors in it. We know that things were added after the Bible was written. And I go on a lot about the long ending of Mark, where it's added after the fact that Christians will be able to handle poisonous snakes and drink poison without being harmed. That didn't start appearing until sort of mid 300, I think the 4th century, mid 300s, I think. It really is this later addition to it. So we know that there's stuff in there, in the copies, that wasn't in there originally. So how is that not fallible? And he's got a point. Any kind of knowledge, even if you're getting some kind of absolute knowledge, it's still got to be filtered through very fallible humans. So how can, like, if you have a failure point at any chain between the God and the book and the person reading it, right? Because don't forget, you've got to read it and interpret it correctly. How do you do that? Well, everybody disagrees. So we don't know what the correct interpretation is. So a point of failure on any of those makes it fallible. So obviously, at least the book may not be, okay, just say that the book is infallible. We still know that people get it wrong, meaning that the interpretation from the book to the person can be fallible. Absolutely can be, because Frank thinks that people interpret it incorrectly. Oh, hey, yes, Cook. How you doing?
wrong.
Why do you posit that the authors of the Bible, most of them anonymous, could understand and interpret infallibly? I'm not saying it's not correct.
Yeah, and he's right. He's talking about the Gospels here. So the Gospels are anonymous. We don't know who wrote them. Not for sure. Mark was the first one written. We don't know that was Mark. Seems to suggest it doesn't. Luke seems to have copied a lot of Mark. There's a massive problem with who wrote these things. We're pretty damn confident that Paul was written by Paul, or the epistles and the Corinthians and things like that. The letters were written by Paul. But as far as the Gospels go, which are the account of the resurrection, we're pretty damn sure that the people that they say wrote them didn't write them at all.
I'm saying because fallible would be possible of error, but your position would be they are not possible of error. My concern is
could be possible of error, but I'm
okay.
going
So
on
that's
the authority
fallible.
I'm
right, and the Mormon's got a really good point here, right? Like the Bible's infallible, but the whole point he's making is if you're relying on fallible people to write it down correctly, it could be wrong, because infallibility means it cannot possibly be wrong. Much like inerrancy, it cannot possibly be in error. So he's making a really good point that if the authors were fallible, it's a fallible book. But I think that a lot of Christians, and I'm not sure what Frank's going to do to this because he seems really ticked off at these very good questions and good conclusions that the Mormon is making. But usually they go to, well, it was inspired by God. So with that inspiration, they can't possibly have made errors. That's usually what they go to. And, I'll point out the parts where things were added later that, hey, we still have a problem because people added stuff later. But, he's basically going to use the book to confirm the book. Because the book is inerrant, all of the information from the book is inerrant. How can you tell? Because the book's inerrant. How do you know the book's inerrant? Because the book's inerrant. It's really, it's just a terrible, because the book says it's inerrant. It's just a circular argument.
going on the authority of Jesus.
So you would agree they are fallible, possible.
I'm not saying they are. Of course, they could be, but then if I said the scriptures were fallible, I'd be disagreeing with Jesus, and that's never a good place to be.
So the book is what says that Jesus has the authority to proclaim the truth. And you know that Jesus has the authority to proclaim the truth because the book says he does. How can you trust the book? Because Jesus has the authority to proclaim the truth. It is a massive circular argument. Just the authority of Jesus is confirmed by the truth of the book. The truth of the book is confirmed by the authority of Jesus. It's just a circular argument. Hey, Jay Peralta. Good to see you, mate. Dog chasing his tail. Yep.
Gee, he never said the New Testament was
well, if he's saying the Old
right?
Testament is the word of God and he's promising the New Testament, do you think he's going to say the Old Testament is true, but the New Testament these guys are going to write down as false?
Well, that's a bit of a leap to say that they won't, right? If he doesn't say, hey, there shall be a New Testament that follows and all of it will be infallible or there never will be any errors in it, that's one thing. But the Mormon has a point. He didn't say that was going to happen, and he didn't say that it's going to be inerrant. He just died and then supposedly rose again.
Maybe, but you also are pointing to the text to prove the text, right? You're looking at
it's true.
So do you accept that circular reasoning?
No, it's not circular reasoning because
how is that not circular reasoning, my guy? It absolutely is, Frank. What? Please.
Those New Testament scholars that look into this have enough criteria when they look at these documents to know that Jesus said these things based on different tests, like embarrassing testimonies one, dissimilarities another.
Yeah, the criterion of embarrassment's not very strong to me. It's sort of saying, hey, there were things that happened that wouldn't be good for Jesus's image kind of thing. It's like, well, yeah, actually, if you are telling a lie, it's actually better to include things like embarrassing personal situations because people don't believe you would make it up. Like that's definitely a thing. And, you know, the idea of dissimilarity, yeah, I would agree. Just because two people's stories about an event are dissimilar doesn't mean the event didn't happen. But at the same time, it doesn't lend any credibility that it did, especially since a lot of these gospels are copied off one another and we don't even know who wrote them. They could easily have known each other, easily.
I believe the text is reliable. I do, but I don't see evidence for infallibility. And it seems like you agree that they could, that because they're written by humans, like.
Okay, but here's your you're making.
Sure.
I think you're making a mistake, Hayden. You're saying.
What mistake has he made? Because I don't see him making a mistake. I don't. Like, you're trying to appeal to, hey, scholars have looked at the text and said, hey, it seems to have happened. Or, look, the resurrection could have happened and all of what Jesus could have been said, and it still could have been fallible. It still could have been taken down wrong or have the possibility to be taken down wrong. You're claiming infallibility, that it could not be possible that it is incorrect. It's a really strong position to take, and you've got no one to blame but yourself, sir. So you're in this mess by yourself, by your own hand. So it does not follow that because the things were recorded accurately, say, about what Jesus said and about the resurrection, that everything in it is correct. Like, it doesn't follow.
It's since humans err, they always err.
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay,
I'm saying
could human beings write down and
it's not a circle if you already believe it in a circle. Yeah, and I'll point to Sci 10 Bruggenkate when I got into it with him. He says it's not a circle, it's a spiral. I will love that comment forever from him. I will love it forever. You know, it's not a pyramid scheme. Our model is the trapezoid.
inerrant book?
No, because
There's plenty of inerrant books other than the Bible.
Okay. But
yes, there are plenty of inerrant books other than the Bible. Yes, I would agree with that. We shouldn't just assume that a book is inerrant. I don't. But, you know, this is the only book that's kind of applied to, you know, like we sort of go, okay, some books reflect what happened, or, you know, history books reflect what happened more accurately than other ones. We've got to be careful with how much we believe. And, you know, I remember watching this thing from Sally Payne. She was basically saying, if you pick up a history book of another country, right, you pick up a history book from Iran, and she has a rule. It's this rule that basically says that whenever you pick up a history book from a country, flip to the bibliography, the sources that they have. If you don't see any sources in the country's language from any people with names that come from the country, it's not a book worth reading. So just because we look at books and say, hey, this one is accurate, that one isn't, and that's fantastic. I love Sally Payne's amazing, just amazing. Look, just because, you know, we think some books are accurate and some aren't, we're not saying they're infallible, right? We're saying they're very fallible. They may be accurate. Some are more accurate than others. Some are very accurate. Some are not accurate at all. But you're saying this is completely inerrant and without error whatsoever. And it's just incredible that you can make this statement with nothing to back it up besides the book says it is. When the book doesn't say it is, it says the old scriptures are infallible. And he's absolutely roasting it on you because you've got the authority of Jesus is how I know it's infallible, and it's infallible. That's why it's infallible. And we get the authority of Jesus because the book tells us about it. It is a circular argument. Absolutely circular. Oh, is that the same as a virtuous circle? Yeah, so Sci 10 Bruggenkate, he was using this, it's a virtuous circle rather than a vicious circle, right? And he got a lot of crap for it because it really didn't mean anything. You know, he's just basically saying, hey, it's a special type of circular argument that sort of gets him out of the predicament of having a circular argument. So now he's moved on to, well, it's not a circle, it's a spiral. And I have no idea how he has figured that. Because, I mean, when I was talking to him, like, how do you know this? And he's like, because I know. How do you know this? Because I know. That is the most vicious circle. That circle has rabies. That's what I'm saying, okay? That circle is so vicious, it has rabies. The whole idea of a virtuous circle or a virtuously circular argument, and I'm not even sure I believe this, but the argument they make is it basically circles finding more and more evidence to support itself. So some things in science you may be led in a circle, but the evidence gets more and more as you go along. Sci-10 is not doing this at all. Like, he's just saying, I know it because God because I know it. That's essentially what he's doing.
But I mean, if you want to write a book that's one line that says, I exist, sure. But the Bible's not one line. It's very complicated, right?
Okay, so
you're saying every line in the Bible is infallible. That's just
okay.
While also saying that humans are fallible. So how can a human write an infallible book?
It's a good question. How can a fallible human write an infallible book? He summed it up really well, and I really like this guy. He's asking the real questions.
Humans write infallible books all the time.
Well,
no, they do not. No, Frank. Humans write infallible books all the time. Really? So humans write books with no possibility of having any errors. That statement is incredible. And don't forget, this is the clip that Frank put up. This is his best work. Can you imagine the ones that he didn't put on his YouTube channel?
Well, they write books that are true,
okay,
but capable of error.
Look,
that's
they're
the
capable of
question.
error, but most math books are true.
Most math books are true. So math is, so many theists think that math is this thing in the real world that has somehow a spiritual life or something. They think it's this real thing in the world. Math is kind of a pseudo-real thing. It looks real, right? It describes things really well. It's a really good thing for describing stuff. But it isn't a real thing. Like, you don't have a 2. It's a descriptor. It's a description of something that is in reality, right? So you have 2 of something or 4 of something. You can't have just a 2 or just a 4. It's an abstract concept. It makes some real lovely patterns as you do the calculations and stuff. It makes these patterns that we see reflected in the world around us. But the problem comes that, we can't seem to get to a 100% exact, accurate model using mathematics of the real world. There's too many variables and there's too many things involved. The chaotic systems are something that we have to do these statistical predictions rather than sort of absolute values, because we can't model them. So models are all wrong. Some of them are useful, is the quote. And I don't remember who said that, but it's not really, math isn't really a thing by itself. And you're like, well, there's 2 and there's 2 rocks, so it's got to be a thing. Well, no, that's how we've described it, and that's how we've reflected the reality of, numbers of things in the universe, but that doesn't make the math itself real. It's just how we model these things. It can be very, very deceptive. So, and Luke, new member, thank you so much, Luke. Big shout out. Oh, that reminds me, Luke, you are a champion, because I have to give away some readerships as well, some free readerships. So thank you so much, mate. You are an absolute legend, because I am terrible and my memory is horrific and awful. No, that's not it. Give me one sec. I just get organized here. Oh, wow. I can't believe I was kicking myself over that, and like seriously going, I can't believe I forgot those things last time. And yeah, there we go. So yeah, Luke, Enjoy your emotes, enjoy your gifts and stuff. I've got to start doing some supporter, some membership stuff. But thank you. Winner, chicken dinner. Enjoy your emotes and your other benefits. Thank you so much. And that goes to, excuse me, just let me get my big time announcer voice on. That goes to Kalasia 789. Oh, you hit Kalasia. So good. Counter apologetics. That is actually Nara. So Nara gets one. Razor Robertson, the Powder Dusty, and Melania Cosmic Fox. Winners, chicken dinners. There you go. Okay. 5 readerships go out, and Luke. Fantastic, mate. Fantastic.
Okay,
but are there errors in the math books?
There might be, but some math books don't have.
Yes, but if there can be errors, they're not infallible. He's not getting it. He's sort of saying there's no possibility for error in this book. They are fallible. Math books are fallible.
Errors. Like when I read my first math book, 2 + 2 = 4. Seesaw's wrong.
Sure, if you want to make it one line, but the Bible's not one line.
Okay,
right? Does that make sense?
What are you trying to get at, Abe?
Yeah, and he's sort of being like some random kid is kicking his ass right now, so he really wants to cut it short. Not even going into that maths, things and proofs in math, they're not really, they model the real world, but they're not true like something is real in the real world. Like it's a completely separate, he's making a category error. He's trying to say, hey, the math is true. And it's like, no, math is not true because you're really talking about that math being represented in the real world, right? So maths is abstractions. So for instance, there's no such thing as a straight line. Okay, there's no such thing. There is only curved lines that we put with a deviation of 0. In the real world, no line will ever be straight. It can't be. It's impossible. Because when you go further and further and further down, it will deviate in some way. It will not be straight. When you go to a microscopic level, it won't be straight. Okay, so these abstractions, and like pi, for instance, a lot of theists go on about pi. Well, pi applies to a perfect circle, and a perfect circle doesn't exist either. Okay, it's an abstraction. It's a representation of what we see in the world, and it models the real world really well. There's no straight lines. There is only Zul. No, actually, when I first did calculus, that's one of the first things my lecturer told me when we did calculus. There are no straight lines. There are only curved lines with an angle of 0. That's it. Parallel lines don't exist. The line is of the devil. Yes. Actually, I remember somebody debated and they were sort of saying, hey, geometry is witchcraft. And it was hilarious. I got to say, like when someone's like, oh, you're teaching your kids witchcraft, this geometry, they're using shapes and stuff. It's like, dude, what? Like, this is geometry is the work of the devil. Like, come on, dude, it's just geometry.
If I could believe,
are you trying to find an opening for Mormonism?
No, he's not. He is very, very efficiently and well countering your claim that the Bible is infallible. That's what it's about. The Bible's infallible, right? That's the claim that you've made. And he's rightfully saying, hey, that doesn't seem like a very valid claim, or a sound claim to make, rather, because it seems to be circular. And he's right. I didn't think I would ever say this, but the Mormon is right. Okay? He is.
If I believed in the infallibility of the Bible, I would be a Protestant. So that's what I'm
why
trying
aren't
to figure
you? Welcome
out.
home. Why?
Because he doesn't believe in the infallibility of the, like, this is the thing. It's these kind of tactics that are just, it's weird, because he said, if I believe in the infallibility of the Bible, I would be a Protestant. And he's like, well, welcome home. He doesn't believe in the... Frank, what is wrong with you? This is just a thing for the audience, like, oh, he does believe in the infallibility, but he said he doesn't. It's, unless you are a Kool-Aid drinking Turek tugger, let's just call it a Turek tugger, you are not going to get a laugh out of that because you've basically said, hey, I know what you think better than you do. And you do believe in the infallibility of the Bible. No, Frank, you're a joke. You're a frigging joke. Like, seriously, how much Kool-Aid do you have to drink to think that is a good retort? That, hey, you do believe in the infallibility, so I'm right. Wow. Fundamentalist fails, ladies and gentlemen. This is why I called it that.
Why wouldn't you be? What evidence do you have that the Book of Mormon is true, or Pearl of Great Price, or Doctrines and Covenants?
That's a good question too. How do you know the Book of Mormon's true? But Frank wants to move it off his claim about the Bible onto you. He doesn't want to talk about it anymore. And don't forget, the entire title of this video, hang on, I'll just grab the title, was Mormon challenges Frank on biblical inerrancy, right? So it's about biblical inerrancy. And he's just going, well, yours may not be inerrant. So do we know what this is? We certainly do. We've seen it a lot of times. The technical name is a tu quo que fallacy. And I know that's Latin and stupid. It basically means two wrongs don't make a right. Okay? That's basically it. Even if the Book of Mormon was a complete load of crap, what do you mean if? The Book of Mormon is a complete load of crap, it doesn't make Frank's book correct, right? So him going to argumentation that, hey, your book is nonsense as well. What? That doesn't prove yours is correct. No, which is just hilarious because it implicitly, it doesn't explicitly, it doesn't overtly or completely say, hey, my book's crap as well, but it implies it because he's saying, well, what about your book? Your book could be fallible. And he's like, yeah, you too. It sort of translates more accurately to, and you also, basically. But yeah, GA-Sam, you got it right in one.
I would argue that there are more witnesses for the golden plates of the Book of Mormon than there were for the...
He's not wrong. He probably should have said there's more eyewitness testimony, right? There's more eyewitness testimony because when you say eyewitnesses, it opens up them saying, hey, what about the 500? What about the, this, and this? And it's like, well, no, you've got actual 4 eyewitness testimonies and we don't even know who wrote them. So we don't actually know that they're eyewitnesses at all. Sorry.
For the resurrection.
We can't go too much further in this. Okay. We've got a big line. Let me just say this.
Sure.
Well, let's not go too far because I can't actually defend my position of biblical inerrancy. Let's move to something else completely.
Are golden plates a miracle?
In the way that they were received by Joseph, yes.
How do you know how he received them?
I mean, you're arguing like an atheist.
You are arguing like an atheist. How do you know that they were given to Joseph Smith by the angel Moroni? It's a good question. I wouldn't, I think that Frank's doing it to say, hey, my miracle is bigger than yours. You only got golden plates. My guy rose from the dead. I mean, come on, dude. It's like comparing Superman to One Punch Man, like, oh, if mine punched yours, he would certainly win. Come on, dude, grow up. Like, seriously.
I could say the same thing about the resurrection. How do you know the resurrection?
Yes, he could. Yes, he could. I like this guy. I mean, yeah, I don't think he's right about Mormonism, but he's certainly right about Frank having no more evidence than Mormonism does. He's correct about that. It's just been around a lot longer. That's all. That's all. They've got the same amount of evidence for both.
Well, because we have multiple eyewitnesses. How many eyewitnesses do we have for the golden plates?
19.
19?
Yes.
Who all saw them come from heaven.
They saw the golden plates. They handled them.
Yes, and they all claimed that it was gifted by an angel. And a lot of them were excommunicated from the church, and they did not change their statements. They still believed it was a miracle. So, yep.
Okay, I can make golden plates in my garage.
Sure.
I don't think you could, Frank. I don't know what kind of a handyman you are, but I don't think you could make golden plates in your garage. I don't know what kind of a garage he's got either. So that, I guess I'll believe it when I see it. Is Frank a metallurgist as well? Is this happening? I don't know.
But how many extant witnesses or witness testimonies were left of the resurrection?
Left of the resurrection? What do you mean?
How many firsthand accounts of the resurrection were left? Witness testimonies were left.
Well, you have Paul.
Okay, so
Paul did not witness the resurrection. No, that's wrong. That's 100% wrong. Paul did not witness the resurrection. He's wrong. Paul saw a light and heard a voice and said it was Jesus after the resurrection happened. Paul was not a witness to the resurrection. You are wrong, sir. And it's amazing that someone can go through a seminary and still answer that question as in Paul was an eyewitness to the resurrection. No, he was not. Absolutely not.
You have John.
Okay.
You have Matthew.
Oh, okay.
You have Luke, who interviewed eyewitnesses. You have Mark, who probably got his testimony from Peter. You've got Jude. You've got...
Well, yeah, but they didn't write anything down, mate. It's the Gospels that you've got as the eyewitness accounts. And most of them were copied off others. And we don't even know if they were eyewitnesses. Because we don't know who wrote them. So do we know that the witnesses to the resurrection that you claim happened were written by the people that saw it? No, because we don't know for sure who wrote it. So you've got 4, maybe. It's just, he's got 19, definitely, with signed affidavits, like legal affidavits saying that they saw this miracle. Mormonism wins. It wins on eyewitness testimony. Deviant Outcast, thank you so much. Member for 8 months. 8 months. Wow. Okay. I'll take it. I'll take it. Look, awesome people like Deviant. Yeah. Fail Turek thoroughly Franks. Fail Turek thoroughly Franks. What does that mean? Franks thoroughly Turek fail. I don't know what that means. I'm looking for secret codes. Failed Turek thoroughly Franks. Okay. I'll take it as read.
Am I leaving out? James.
Okay, so that's
James did not write anything down. Like, this is the thing. You can't get writings of somebody else like Paul, who basically spoke to James and said, okay, will you witness the resurrection? And he said James did. That is hearsay. That's not a first. He asked, what first-hand accounts of the resurrection do you have? 4, maybe.
5 or 6.
Okay, then you got Paul saying to the church at Corinth, there are 500 others, and if you don't believe me, you ought to check with them. He would have lost all credibility if he had said that, and there was nobody to check with.
That's one opinion. Do you know how far away Corinth was? Like, Corinth is in Greece, I believe. Like, you're talking about a time when people didn't really travel, and Paul sends a letter saying, yeah, I spoke to 500 people. You can talk to them yourself if you want, to Corinth in Greece. People didn't travel that far. They're not going to travel over there to check. Like, it's not like today where you'd send a letter saying, hey, these 500 people, and they'd send somebody on a plane to check it. No. This is weird. It's like, oh, well, you can check it if you. One's in Greece, one's in modern day Israel. It isn't the shortest distance. What?
There's no witnesses. There's no accounts from 500, right? That's on Paul's word.
Right, but why would Paul say that if he's trying to build credibility with the church at Corinth? If there were none of these 500 there, they would.
because no one in that day is going to travel from Greece to Israel just to check what some dude has said. No one's going to make that trip simply to debunk this guy. This sale. Yeah, so about weeks of travel to get to here, and that's by boat. Yeah.
Would have all they'd have said, Paul, you're lying.
Frank Turek thoroughly fails. Oh, okay, gotcha. Failed Turek thoroughly Franks. Gotcha. You did a switcheroo. I gotcha. Thank you. I was going to be thinking about that all day trying to figure it out. Hey, so I'm glad you pointed that out. I always miss the obvious. You know what I mean? Like I do these dissections and I get really into it, and then I miss the blindingly obvious in front of me. Story of my life. But hey, it's great to be me.
And there's nobody here who says they've seen the resurrected Jesus.
And by the way, I believe Paul. But I'm saying on the.
I think we've done one of those on debate dissections. I think I'd love to do it on debate dissections if we haven't done it, because that sounds hilarious. But I think we've done that on debate dissections with the lovely Ember.
On that same standard of witnesses, like if there was not 500, would you still believe?
Sure. Well, but
okay,
we
so
do have.
Yeah, absolutely, Andrew. And some people lie about all kinds of things, and even after it's been demonstrated that they're lying, they will continue to lie. It happens. And if people have motivated interest in that lie being true, they will propagate the lie. We've all seen that. Like this whole idea that, we couldn't possibly have made these people up. Why not? It wasn't like today's where you could, go and Google these people and see if they're real. Like, come on, Frank, what are you talking about?
500. It's a counterfactual question, but let me just ask you this.
Sure.
How are golden plates a miracle? A resurrection is a miracle. Golden plates can be a miracle, but they don't have to be. They can be created.
Well, you don't really have a resurrection. You have an empty tomb, and people say there was a resurrection, but no problem. What is he's Turekan. He's nothing but a Tureker. Seriously, I don't know what he's doing. This is apparently, this is the clip that he put on his on his page. So this is the best that Frank can muster up. Incredible.
Sure. Is that your stance that Joseph created the plates? Is there any evidence for that whatsoever?
Is there any? Well, it's not. I don't have the burden of proof to prove that Joseph created them. You have the burden of proof to say they came from heaven.
Okay.
Yeah, that's funny, that Frank. So we don't have the burden of proof to show that the resurrection didn't happen. You have the burden of proof to show that it did. But when it comes to that, it's a completely another story, isn't it? That's yeah.
Okay, so I think the burden or the evidence for the burden of proof would be the text of the Book of Mormon itself, that Joseph translated or dictated in 65 days, over 4,000 words a day. He was translating 269,000 words.
Are you aware that Joseph has been exposed as a fraud when it comes to translations, the Book of Abraham and all that? Do you know all this, Hayden?
I know all the arguments, yes.
Okay.
So, yeah, and now, so notice here, and I want you to pay attention that it's now switched from the inerrancy of the Bible to he's going to, you shouldn't believe the Book of Mormon at all, that it has any true stuff in it. Because don't forget, he can't turn around and say, well, you think that the Book of Mormon is infallible, because he doesn't, right? He believes that it's mostly true, but it could be fallible, but has confidence in it. Okay? And now Frank's going, well, you shouldn't believe anything in there because the guy's a fraud. And absolutely, Joseph Smith was a fraud. He translated some tablets he bought from an Egyptologist into this new Egyptian kind of thing, and said it was this new book, the Book of Abraham, and like, you know, it had all this stuff in that support, you know, that was Mormon stuff, the Nephi and Moroni and all of these angels about Mormons, and translated it. It was later discovered after reading it and uncracking language that it was just an old form of Egyptian, and all it was a burial prayer, right? He was absolutely found out just making it up. So I agree with Frank, right? I totally agree with Frank. I didn't think I would be saying that this session, but I do agree with him that Joseph Smith was a fraud. It is most likely that, or overwhelmingly likely, that the Book of Mormon was a fraudulent document created by a guy wanting to enshrine his own religion off the back of Christianity. Sure, I agree. However, that doesn't make the Bible either A, inerrant, or B, true at all. Right? Like, he could be the world's biggest liar. He probably was the world's biggest liar at one point. You know, Joseph Smith is pretty bad, but, you know, he could be terrible, and everything he says ever uttered is a lie, and it doesn't get to, you know, his book and the Bible and the New Testament and the Gospels, epistles, it does not in any way sway that towards truth at all.
But you're arguing like an atheist. You're casting doubt on somebody maybe who wasn't perfect. I'm not saying he was, but
no,
we could have a debate on the Book of Abraham. I'm willing to do that with you, but probably not right now.
No.
Probably another time.
Not right now. The question is, in evangelical Christianity were true, would you become a Christian?
Yes.
Okay.
But the issue is I
good research it, because it is true, right? Yeah. But, you know, you're supposed to be, and the name of this was like Mormon Challenges, and he rebuts this Mormon on, you know, his arguments. He hasn't rebutted anything. All he's done is just committed multiple fallacies and then shifted the topic to the book, which doesn't get him to the inerrancy of the Bible.
I believe I'm a Christian, but not in the way that you obviously would define that.
Oh, no, Frank would never call you a Christian, sir. This is the thing. To atheists, Mormons are Christians. Church of Latter-day Saints, they believe in Jesus. They believe in the authority of Jesus. They're Christians. Bam, easy, done. They're a Christian because they say they're Christian. They believe in Jesus. Sure, done. All the other Christians go, no, absolutely not. And I kind of understand why, but I don't care. I don't have a dog in the race. I don't favor any type of Christianity. So if you want to be called a Christian, have at it. I don't give a crap. And it's weird because you talk to especially evangelicals, and you're like, well, you know, I call them a Christian because they claim to believe in Jesus and, you know, defer to his authority. That's what makes you a Christian in my book. So he's a Christian. And they're like, yeah, but mine is the true one. And I'm like, yeah, they say theirs is the true one. How do I tell? And they're like, well, I've got these stories in this book. And it's like, yeah, they've got all the same. There's no, like, from the outside, unless you are already in it, believing it, there's no way to tell that. It's just like, yeah, one of you believe one thing and another believes another. And that, I'll just call you both Christian because you both claim to be Christian. That's it. That's all. And I'm not taking sides here. But of course, evangelicals take that as, well, you're saying we're not the true Christians. Oh, come on, dude. Seriously? I don't care. I don't care. I really don't.
Okay, well, remember what Paul said about another gospel in Galatians chapter 1. Sure. If anybody comes to you and tries to give you another gospel, may that person be accursed. Mormonism, I hate to say it, but it's true. It's another gospel. It's not the true gospel.
Can we connect? How can we connect on this and talk more about this?
Well, you can email me. Go to Crossing.
Yeah. Then the Mormon's making good points, and he goes to a thing in Galatians where, you know, okay, that's your interpretation? Yeah.
Examine.org. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, in fairness, to be honest with you, Ralph, in fairness, atheists can't agree on, oh, sorry, I should clarify that. Some atheists can't agree on what atheist is. So there is a bit of that. But the thing about it is that I think the best thing to do as an atheist is to go, hey, there's multiple definitions of atheist, right? I don't, you know, there's one definition that's used in philosophy of religion, and that is a propositional statement. It's basically, is God real, or does God exist? If you say yes, you're an atheist. If you say no, you're if you say yes, you're a theist. If you say no, you're an atheist. And if you say I don't know, you're agnostic on the question. That's the way they look at it. I think that the sort of more modern example, it fits better. It explains, so if I say I'm a agnostic atheist, for instance, it explains it a lot better about what your position is, kind of thing, because atheist doesn't. And it also makes more sense sort of with grammar, because then theist is believe, atheist is don't believe, and then you have subsets of that. It's a much better system as far as but I don't really care, right? I don't really care what the definition is or the term is. It's just the position is important to me. Like what you actually believe is important to me. Whether you believe there's a God, don't believe there's a God, whether you claim knowledge about that belief or don't, just claim to believe without claiming not. That's the important part to me. I don't care what you're calling it. If you want to call somebody an agnostic, have at it. I don't care. I like the new way better because it seems more structured and easier to understand. It also is better when talking about a lack of belief being the thing that ties it together. I think it's way better. But even in philosophy, atheism has multiple meanings. There's no hard and fast thing. And definitions, they're not prescriptive. We don't have a definition. It only describes usages. And it's not the end of the world to have multiple usages for something, right? It's not the end of the world. It's just one of those things. Some words have multiple meanings. Get over it. That's language for you. That is absolute language for you. Now, this one is, but just of the last one, right? The whole thing was Mormon challenges Frank on the inerrancy of the Bible. He didn't get to the inerrancy. He didn't address the inerrancy of the Bible. He just made a circular argument, then went on a sort of an act sort of saying, "Oh, your book isn't true. How can you tell your book is true?" Which has nothing to do with it. It's just like he's just trying to look over here. Look over here. The Bible's inerrant. Look over here. There's something. Look at your thing. Come on, Frank. I would say you're better than that, but he's not.
Yes. Hi. What's your name?
So I want to do a trigger warning on this one. He's going to talk about LGBTQI. So Frank has been a complete fool about it. I don't like his view on it, but I really want to show this as sort of Frank being a bit of an asshole, basically. So let's go at it. They do really well. I don't know what their gender is, but they do very well. And Frank, again, this is the ones that he's putting up on his channel. So this is the best that Frank can keep that in mind. This is the best the man can muster.
I'll just say my name is Mav.
Say what?
Mav.
Mav.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. So my question for you is, if God said that there is going to be male and female, and then there's some variety within that called intersex people, why do you guys insist on this binary definition of sex when clearly biology is not so binary? There are intersex people, and you'll say, oh, it's just 1% of people, et cetera, et cetera. And then also, let's extend that to same-sex relationships. So you have someone.
Yeah, so intersex people make up about 1.5, I think, % of the population. So it's over 1%, right? There's probably more intersex people than, I don't know, golf enjoyers kind of thing. There's a lot of intersex people out there. It's just that some of them don't even know they're intersex. It usually gets revealed to them when they go through puberty and some stuff happens, but it sometimes can take longer. And so it's not just this fringe, oh, well, it's just one person occasionally. 1.5%, that's a large amount of a planet with like getting on 8 billion people, right? That is like 840, it's about 840 million people, I think, or 84 million people. Like, it's a lot of people, right? This isn't sort of a fringe thing, but he sort of goes, oh, no, it's just no, it's not. And there's varying levels and various types of intersex people. It's really important to understand. that sex isn't the binary male-female that we think it is.
Who's born heterosexual, bisexual, or homosexual. So why is there this thing where God would say, that's fine, but that's not fine. And he creates them knowingly like that. And then in the past, the church has said these people are mentally ill. They deserve to be, put in institutions.
That is true. The church has been very hostile towards gay people, and they have declared them mentally ill. I believe the Catholic Church did a big apology for the things that they did to gay people. The governments have been the same, pressured by Christianity. Christianity's been freaking awful to people. So why are we for the amount that Christians have had to apologize for the things their churches and their religion has done in the past? Why does anybody consider them a moral authority? I will never understand it, because they're constantly making these apologies and trying to fit in with society. And it's just like, well, why do you still claim to be a moral authority? You seem to have less idea about what is moral than the rest of us. According to Donald Trump, everybody in the US is female, is a woman. Sorry.
Penalize, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I could go on and on about that. But my question is, why do you say that if I'm going to be a Christian again, then I need to repent from being LGBTQI plus and then accept this narrow version of the gospel? That to me is like conversion therapy, and the UN and all these other major medical organizations in the US and around the world have called that torture. So for you to stand here and to defend that, that's pretty messed up.
And they are not wrong. The UN has declared forced conversion therapy to be a form of torture. It is not okay to, if you are, and it goes against, the reason why it is it goes against oh God, I've forgotten the name of it. Okay, we used to have the Hippocratic Oath. Everybody's aware of the Hippocratic Oath, right? The Hippocratic. Is it the Hippocratic Oath, right? Hippocratic Oath. Okay, so that's basically do no harm. During sort of, as the modern day and the industrial era progressed, we realized there was a problem with the Hippocratic Oath. Now they take I think it's the Oath of Geneva. It's related to the Geneva Convention on, human rights, basically. The Oath of Geneva is different. The Hippocratic Oath says do no harm, but sometimes you do have to in order to help your patient. If somebody's got a leg that is infected beyond repair and, the infection's moving up, sometimes you've got to amputate that leg, right? You've got to do harm in order to save somebody. So now the Oath of Geneva, basically for all medical personnel, is I will do what is in the best interest of my patient. Okay? What is in the best interest of my patient. So their health, whether that's mental or physical, you are doing what is in the best interests of that health. And conversion therapy is not. It is in what's in the best interest of your God or your religion. It violates that oath. It absolutely does. Oh, thank you so much, Brooklyn. I really appreciate it. Brooklyn Lou, seeing your debate with Jim Bob, you did great. Christians running around claiming victory because they do not even understand what you were saying. Thanks to them. Oh, my pleasure. A lot of people ask me, and if you didn't see my midweek show, which is sort of a show on morality, just going into am I the a-hole on Reddit and making moral designations, what we ought to do. But a lot of people ask me why I did it, and I spoke about it briefly. But I think it was because, number one, I don't like bullies. And number two, I wanted to be confident in myself that I can stand up to someone like that. And I think that all of his usual tactics, and I also, there's sort of a third reason or a reason why now I think it was a good idea, is because I'm now sort of talking to friends of mine and sort of saying, hey, if you want to see how to deal with some of the more horrible people that won't let you talk and, go off tangent, and they just want to ask you questions without responding, take some notes, because That is part of his tactics. He'll just interrupt you. He'll just ask you questions without answering any. And really, it's just, you know, precept tactics. We've all seen them before. But thank you, Brooklyn. I really appreciate it. Not sure I'd do it again in a hurry, but, you know, I can get down in the mud with the worst of them. I can. So, yeah, I certainly can. I much prefer a civilized discussion, you know, debate where people are actually debating in good faith. You're never going to get that from that man, or, you know, a lot of people like him. But hey, you know, I can get down and dirty. I can get down and dirty. Yeah. Yep.
What is your response to that?
Well, Matt, let me ask you a question. What is your standard of morality?
I'm myself, I'm a second.
What is your standard of morality? Yeah. Okay. So he's basically asking, like, he wants to shift it away from what the church that has done that's incredibly immoral, and we know it's immoral because, hey, the UN saying, hey, this is a form of torture. I don't know if you're going to be able to argue that that's moral. I mean, Frank could try. Good luck to you. But, you know, asking you what yours is, it's like, well, that doesn't make yours right. What if there's what if Islam is actually the moral system? Again, Frank's doing what we saw in the last video. Basically, the technical term is a tu quo que fallacy. It's an and you also. He's going, well, what about your moral system? Even if it was incredibly immoral and evil, it doesn't make yours moral. You've got to show that yours is moral first. And that's how you get there.
Secular humanist, I think that everybody is innately good.
What do you mean by good?
Well, obviously murder is wrong.
Why?
Because if I went and murdered someone's kid, then that mother or father would not have a child, and they would be in mourning, and that caused them some great psychological turmoil for the rest of their lives and trauma they're going to have to work through in therapy. So objectively, we can see psychologically, they're not going to be doing too hot. So of course, that's objectively.
Well, yes, objectively, they're not going to be doing well. But I think what Frank is doing is he is attacking a very little known area of morality on purpose, because not a lot of people know about it, something called meta ethics. It's not just, hey, this outcome occurs, but why that outcome, like why that outcome is on the negative side rather than the positive. So not just what we ought to do, but the reasons why we ought to consider it something good. It's sort of very, very meta. So what he's used to is getting sort of atheists and secular humanists who don't know about that, like why we're actually, like, just say you're a secular humanist and you believe that, hey, I'm trying to reduce suffering. He's going, well, why is reducing suffering important, right? And it's kind of it's kind of trying to target where people haven't thought about. It's very intuitive to go, well, I don't like hurting people. Right, absolutely, you don't like hurting people. Totally. But why ought we not do it? That's the question. And they get a bit to it, but I think sort of having an understanding of why it is that you want to do that. A lot of it can be tied to just the way we feel. Empathy. Like I feel empathy. I feel terrible when that happens. So I don't like human suffering because I don't like it, because I don't feel that, you know, my sense of empathy goes, The other one that people forget is something called reciprocity, reciprocal, right? It's basically, it's that sense that things should be equal, that if something happens to you or you get something, I should get something for the same action or same thing. It's a big deal in social animals, especially humans. You know, if somebody is doing the same amount of work and being paid way less, they get upset. That's reciprocity. So if I go, well, I don't want that to happen to me, I shouldn't do it to other people, because if I do start doing it to other people, they can do it to me. And I don't want a society. I don't want a group where that is happening. It's a very, very simple concept that people miss. Is it objective? No. It depends on your stance of what you want, right? So always, there are people that argue that it is objective, that, hey, the empathy and reciprocity, they are sort of hardwired, I hate using that word, into human psyche, so it's kind of objective. I believe, I'm not 100%, I think that's sort of the lines that Dr. Oppie goes down, who's a philosopher, that all of this stuff is sort of objective because it is part of. I think it's just a mental wish that we have these feelings and go, okay, well, I don't like it because I have empathy. It makes me feel horrible to see that. It makes me feel awful to see that. I don't like it. And that I don't want to live in a society because conceivably, if that happens to you, people can do it to me. So we ought not to do that. And that's kind of the difference between ethics and morals. So there's a few answers. I've got my own answers. I think that, for whatever reason you select, if you are a God believer, for instance, and you say, hey, human well-being is important to me because God said so, I can go, cool, human well-being is important to me because I care about human well-being and that makes me feel good. And, it helps with survival to cooperate and have a standard for living. That's why I care about human well-being as well. They are totally compatible to live within a society. If human well-being is actually your intention rather than the glory of God or God's word or whatever, imaginary friend that you're positing, that's fine. I'm not looking for you to absolutely accept my beliefs. What I need is a moral compatibility to live in a functioning society. That's all I need. So I don't see anything wrong with what they've said, even if it's completely arbitrary and they've just said, well, I like human, I don't like human suffering, want to get rid of it. Fine. I'll accept that. Cool.
Wrong.
Why is it objectively wrong to harm people?
Because if we are going to come together as a society and cooperate as a human race, we need to have some sort of moral standard to bind us together, regardless if there's a God or not.
Yeah, and that is a good point. It's pragmatism. Basically, if we if you want a functioning society, then we've got to have a moral standard. We have to, whether there's a God or not, in order for that to happen. So they're absolutely right. They're 100% right. And they're like, well, why do you need a functioning society? It's what I want. If you don't want a functioning society and you don't want people to be able to work together within a social framework, go somewhere else. Go to a country that doesn't have a moral frame. Go nuts. This is the thing. You want to live in a structured society, but you don't understand how having a moral framework could help us get to a structured society. Because you want to say, okay, mine's objective. It comes from a God. Show that. Don't just say it. Show it is so. But all he's got is the claim is that he won't be able to show that it's objective. Frank's making a claim here. He's making a claim that that God provides an objective moral framework. How do you show that? You can't even show that your book was written by a God. As far as we know, it was written by people. How do you get to an objective framework? I don't know. And the fact that people that read the book get different morals from that book means that even if there was an objective framework, you can't get an objective framework out of it. It's subjective because you've got to interpret it the right way, and failure to do so provides all kinds of different interpretations. But the problem comes that every denomination thinks the interpretation is the right one and is the objective morality. It's pointless. We don't know who is right and who is wrong. It's confusion. So I think that out of the two, secular humanism, which says, hey, we're going to provide for human well-being and, form a working society that provides for human well-being and gives rights based upon a social contract, works way better than just someone declaring that theirs is objectively moral without showing it. Sure, it's objectively moral. Show it. They can't.
But whose moral standard? I mean, Hitler had a pretty tight moral standard within Germany. Why was he wrong?
Well, obviously, he was wrong on many levels. I mean, the fact that he murdered millions of people.
But by what standard? Why is it wrong to murder people?
Well, I'm just going to say, within my own...
And yeah, so this is where he sort of launched into a description. He said Hitler's morals were terrible. Yeah, according to me, absolutely. And, you know, what was his goals? His goals was to establish the 1,000-year Reich. Okay, that was his goals. But what he did would not get him to that outcome. And it would be terrible for everybody else. We don't, like, I get what you're saying, that, hey, if morals are intersubjectively decided by the community on what they want in general, it can lead to bad outcomes. And yeah, that sucks. That sucks. But that doesn't make your morals objective. Show that yours are objective rather than just, you know, and we can point to, hey, the Crusades, hey, the killings of Greek Eastern Orthodox by the Catholics. We can point to the Martin Luther and the Protestants, you know, the Protestant Catholics killing each other in Ireland. Great. It seems to be that people have bad moral systems that cause harm to everybody. Yeah. So where's your objective morality now? Can't show it.
Experience. If I witness the murder of someone, which I gratefully have not, I would be, you know, obviously, like, there would be a sinking feeling inside of me, like, wow, I just witnessed the loss of someone's life. That's a terrible thing to see.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, but that does happen within humans in a social level. But what that happens, humans seem to be able to apply one set of standards for themselves and one set of standards for the other. People they don't see as part of their group, of their in-group, basically, the out-group. And you see this all the time. Even in the Bible, thou shalt not kill or thou shalt not murder, but go and slaughter these people over here. You know, that's fine. So we have this sort of ability or this flaw in our systems where we say, hey, I won't do this to my people, but I'll sure as shit do it to everybody else. We seem to have that propensity. And the question is why? It may be that we see too locally. And I've been thinking about this, and I'd love some feedback in comments, or, you know, if you're watching this later, you know, put down what you think, that we sort of see only the country and you know, sort of the local thing and our people and the people around us, and we go, oh, they're terrible and they're over there. I think that there's something called the overview effect. When astronauts go into space, it's called the overview effect. They suddenly have a change of attitude towards the planet when they see the entire planet, like, you sort of, you know, sitting in space with nothing but the vacuum of space around it. It changes their perspectives, and suddenly these astronauts say there's an overwhelming compulsion to try and stop wars and stop people fighting. And I think it has got something to do with that. We can't see the danger of the universe around us because our senses are so limited and they're so local, that I think that if we can see that where we need to cooperate in order to survive on this planet, that we would stop doing this senseless fighting with one another. I don't know. I think it's just a matter of scope. People don't pay attention to it, or they believe that there's a God that covers everything and so it's fine. I don't know. It's just weird. I as a secular humanist, though, this person, they have a right to say, hey, I care for my in-group. I consider my in-group people humans. Yep. Perfectly valid. Absolutely valid. I consider humans to be my in-group. And this is why we have, in so many studies, religious people are more general overall, but atheists and secular humanists are more generous to people of their out-group. So Christians are more generous to Christians. They're not more generous to atheists or Muslims or people like that. Secular humanists don't care. They don't care. They're just, yep, you're a human. You deserve to be helped. You deserve to be assisted. And we see that a lot. you know, and it's not to be undervalued, that breaking down of the, oh, well, this is my group and that's your group, and so I don't have to act morally towards your group. I mean, how many times have we seen it where Christians will be absolutely disgusting towards people that aren't Christians? I reject that completely. I think you should treat people the same, whoever they are. You know, not you know, individually. If someone's an ass, someone's an ass, and you can, you know, reciprocate with that. But, you know, I mean, generally speaking.
Like if someone got ran over by a car and it was so quick and you just didn't see it coming, like, of course that would screw someone up for life. So to me, it's like, you don't have to attribute it to whether there's a God or not. Like psychologically, the way that my brain.
Yeah, I mean, what do you mean by an objective goal? What goals are objective? I think you're sort of making a category error there. I don't think goals are ever objective. Goals are a purpose or some kind of destination that you work towards. It's in your mind. It can't, like, what objective goals are there? You know, can you name an objective goal? So a stance-independent goal? That doesn't seem to make sense to me, Neo. I'm not 100% sure what you mean by that. Because even if your goal is the glory of God, for instance, that's still subjective. It's still stance-dependent that you want to work towards the glory of God. Even if God wants something, then that's still subjective. It's a goal that he is working towards. I don't see how any goal can be objective. Maybe you can answer me on that one.
Is going to see that as like, wow, I just saw harm inflicted onto another, or inflicted onto another.
Yeah, yes, you're describing how you know something's wrong. The question
it's
is
a psychological feeling. And the question is reaction.
The question is, why is it wrong if there's no God?
So wait, can you repeat that last thing?
Yeah, you're explaining one of the ways you might know that something's wrong.
Right.
The question is, why is it wrong if there's no God?
Well, I just think that as a society, we wouldn't be able to just say like, oh, we should allow murder, we should allow this and stuff to happen, because obviously slavery was wrong. We abolished that, obviously.
Okay, you're bringing up all sorts.
Yeah, and slavery was a lot of abolitionists were Christians. Like there's definitely no doubt about that. But there were also a lot of anti-abolitionist movements that were Christian. Okay, let's not forget that there was a lot of people Christian on the other side of the slavery fight who were using the slavery verses in the Bible to back them up. It's been very well documented. You know, things like the Ku Klux Klan, they weren't burning atheist symbols on people's lawns. No, they were very, very Christian. So let's not forget that. So this is the kind of stuff where we go, well, you know, the churches and Christians have done a lot of harm in the past and are doing harm today. Why should we see them as moral authorities? Because you can't get me the God to confirm that your morality is objective. You can't even confirm that the Bible's morality is objective. So why would I believe you?
Sorts of moral wrongs.
But what I'm saying is that was what we need to cooperate as a human race, regardless of whether there's a God or not, because evolution has incentivize cooperation. If I share my fruit with my person, they're going to survive. If I take care of the elderly person in my clan, they're going to survive.
No.
If I take care of the children in my village, they're going to survive. The human race will survive.
Yeah, you can point to human evolution as a objective morality, that we have these things. I hate to use the word again, hardwired, or it is an imperative that we are directed towards by the you know, survival mechanisms that we've been forced to develop. So sort of not just reciprocity, but, you know, if we didn't take care and have empathy for our tribe, for instance, we wouldn't survive. Okay, that's basically what they're pointing to. Now, I kind of disagree with that. I don't think that empathy and a compulsion or a an inclination to take care of your tribe is necessarily objective. I don't think that's necessarily a thing. Because morality is a code of conduct, and I don't think that empathy and reciprocity, being reciprocal, like you take care of my kids, I take care of your kids, and stuff like that, I don't think that is necessarily objective morality, because morality is a code of conduct, and I don't think it rises to that level. But it certainly is something that exists. That's something that can motivate us towards that goal. And if we do want to survive, and you want your kids to survive, and you want your descendants to survive, and your family to survive, and your society to survive, then cooperation is definitely the way to go. Humans suck by themselves. We're terrible by ourselves. We are not designed to survive by ourselves. Some really hardcore people can do it. Well done. They usually don't do it very well. And we're sort of, you know, we're weak. We're not strong. We have tools. Great. But we do so much better as a group. And it was only through being a group that we got to where we are. Some people think that the goals are objective, that they're determined by evolutionary process and things like that. I acknowledge that empathy and reciprocity are, you know, they are. We have these tools because they are evolutionary, but I think how you use them is still stance dependent on what you want and which group that you are part of and how you apply it. So I don't necessarily think it's objective. Other people do. It's definitely a discussion that can be had, but it doesn't really matter, because if we all agree, and this is where something called intersubjectivity comes from, because I know my goal is not subjective. It's not my stance dependent. And I know that, because if I suddenly decide that my goal is to destroy society and you know, unalive everybody and all that kind of stuff, the society's goals don't change. Nothing about the society's changes. And what I'm doing within that society is still immoral. So it can't just be my preference that is governing it. It can't be, because I can change my preference and nothing about the morality, the oughts of the society change at all. So it cannot be my preference. It has to be the preference decided upon by a vast amount of people that determine the code of conduct that would be followed by all reasonable people. And that is morality.
And reproduce, and therefore everyone else is benefited from it.
Mav, evolution is survival of the fittest.
So Frank gets something horrendously wrong. I cannot even sort of fit in how wrong this statement is. Yes, it's the survival of the fittest, but it's in populations, not individuals, right? So you get, you know, you're not seeing social animals attack one another, right? You don't get sort of, you know, all of these animals just destroying one another. No, it doesn't work like that. You don't get penguins, you know, randomly attacking one another because they want to be the fittest. No, that there are norms to be followed within social animals. And yeah, it can happen that you get very, very aggressive groups of animals, but generally they'll take their aggression out on other groups of animals. And that is part of the problem. That's the problem that we're seeing. Really, if we look at it another way, we're on this planet and we ought to cooperate because that is the only way for us to survive. That's it. That's it. Right? We're on a tiny little speck in the most hostile environment, and fighting among ourselves is bloody stupid. That's basically the argument, right? Like if you see, you know, a fire happening around a colony of birds or something, and they're just fighting among themselves rather than helping, you know, carry whatever they want away. You're just like, well, that's very, very stupid behavior. That's not good for survival. No, you're right. So why do we do it? Evolution, baby. That doesn't mean that, so evolution doesn't determine that you have to do anything. If we can't pull ourselves up to a place where we survive, then we kind of don't deserve to, right? We'll go extinct. And that could happen, you know, if we start, I don't know, nuking each other or something. I don't know.
That's not true. There's a lot more to it than you're strawmanning evolution. You're just...
Yes, he is strawmanning evolution because cooperative species cooperate to survive and make themselves better. They're fittest by cooperating. And that's what Frank is absolutely strawmanning. And the kid knows it. The young person knows it. And they're calling it out. Absolutely right. You're wrong, Frank.
So wrong about this stuff. I'm sorry.
Where am I wrong about evolution being the survival of the fittest?
You probably read that guy who
Darwin
funded the
No. Darwin knew about socially cooperating species. That's not a thing that Darwin wrote. What Darwin's saying about survival of the fittest is he's saying even within a population, the one who is the most fit just means the most well suited to the environment. So he's talking about species competing with one another. So the most fit species. Frank, we're all the same species, right?
Ark Encounter, maybe you or whatever in Kentucky, you probably read his straw man version of evolution. And I really don't think that you really talk to biologists and you really know what's going on.
Okay.
Because anybody that understands evolution wouldn't say about a social species, well, they should all fight among themselves because it's survival of the fittest. That is such a mischaracterization of the theory. It's ridiculous. No. So intersubjectivity would progress. Moral progress would be made by analyzing the outcomes that previous moral systems have produced. So we see these outcomes of previous moral systems and we say, hey, that sucks. I don't like that. And a lot of people agree. We don't like to see people beaten in the streets. We don't like to see people, chemically castrated for loving somebody of their own gender. No, let's stop that. That's how moral progress is made. We analyze the results. Pretty easy. Unfortunately, I mean, it'd be great if churches did a bit more of it rather than, doubling down on whatever awful stuff they're promoting and then having to play catch up with the society, because the amount of apology letters the Pope has made and the amount of apologies priests have made and, gone back on what they said was absolutely God's objective morality is just incredible. It's amazing how wrong they can be, even though they've got objective morality given to them by the all-knowing master of the universe. Yet they're wrong. How is this possible?
There's a whole lot of stuff that a lot of you guys will just straw man and not even take as like what it actually says.
Hold on. Okay. Got a lot of people behind you. I'm asking you simple questions. You come up asking a moral question. I'm asking for a moral standard.
Yeah, no, he's giving simplistic and straw man answers. They are absolutely right, saying that evolution is survival of the fittest, so that, it's moral to, because the original question was, why is it immoral to unalive somebody, right? That was the original thing. If he's saying, hey, evolution says survival of the fittest, that's a straw man of the theory, because social cooperation is a thing within the theory. In fact, it's incredibly important. So the young person is 100% right. Frank's straw manning this.
You haven't given me a moral standard.
I've said objective morality. That is a moral standard.
Where does the objective morality come if there is no God?
Who says it has to be objective? Who says that? Only you say that, but you can't demonstrate yours is objective. That's the thing. Even if mine was the most subjective thing ever, I want Frank to go ahead and demonstrate his is objective. Because even if everybody in the world believed it, like everybody in the world is a Christian, that doesn't make it objective, right? It has to be independent of any stance. It has to be. So show that it's objective, but he can't, because all he's got is a claim that it's objective. That's all he's got. And he can't back up the claim. The churches have done horrible stuff. They've got the morality wrong. Frank's, sort of got horrible morals on some things, causes a lot of harm to people. I'm sure, when later in life he'll be going, oh, maybe I was wrong on this. So where is your objective morality? Where is it?
Not the source of objective.
From within our wiring, from collaborating with other people.
Okay.
Yeah, and that is the objective atheist stance, is that it is the evolutionary process and the instinctual empathy and reciprocity that make morality objective. I don't think it rises to objective. I still think it's stance dependent, but it is a pretty good argument if you do want to put it forward. It definitely is that, hey, that we could be instinctively we know to cooperate, because that's how we've survived in the past. Sorry, I unplugged my mic. Am I still going? Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, so that is an argument. I'm not convinced. I still think it relies a lot. I don't think it's a code of conduct. I think it relies a lot on what you decide to do with that sort of instinct. It doesn't automatically lead to a moral system, but an argument can be made.
There are negative consequences to murder, obviously.
Negative is a moral term. You're importing a moral standard into your atheistic system, and you're stealing it from a theistic worldview.
No, they're not stealing from a theistic worldview. All he's doing is basing his moral system on wanting to get rid of suffering, which isn't bad. I don't have a problem with that. Me and them would probably, or they are importing from a moral system. They're not importing it from yours. Yours is to reach the glory of God, or, convert people or reach heaven, or whatever your moral system is. And that's following God's moral, your claim of moral objectivity from a God. But he's not stealing it from yours. I don't understand that. The thing about secular humanism, it's influenced by a lot of things. Yes, it's influenced by theistic humanism, right? The idea of theists that God wants you to work towards the well-being of humans. Sure, that's part of it. It takes a lot of stuff from Buddhism. It takes a lot of stuff from Hinduism. It takes a lot of stuff from ancient Greek philosophers who believed in Greek gods. It takes a lot from everywhere. That's the strength of it. It can change depending on how good something is for somebody or how bad it is for them. We can say, hey, that thing that we thought was good for you sucks. We've got to get rid of that. We ought not do that because it's got a bad outcome. That's the strength. It's not a weakness. Whereas the churches are still doing the same morally bankrupt crap they've been doing for ages, and they never change. They just double down until society gets fed up with them and they go, oh, better not do that anymore. We're really sorry about it. We misinterpreted God's objective morality that we can't show is objective. So, forgive us. But we're still the objectively moral people. Really. Nice claim, bro.
That's not true.
Well, I'm sorry. You don't get
many moral
morality
standards besides Christianity.
Mav.
There's Buddhism.
Yep.
There's
All right, stop,
Shintoism.
Mav,
there's
stop,
all these different moral codes from all over the world that I've read about, that I've imported. So
Mav,
that's not true.
Mav, I'm going to have to ask you to move away from the microphone unless you give me a chance to respond. Okay?
Fair enough.
Okay. So there is no objective moral standard unless some kind of God exists. Everything is just a matter of human opinion. And so when you hold up a sign that says that certain people have treated LGBTQ people wrongly,
they have, and there's so much evidence for it.
Mav, you might be exactly right about that. But
well, that makes you immoral. If he's right about it, then you're immoral, Frank, because you've given them a real hard time. And you've backed off because people have not liked it. Oops, got that bit wrong, did we? I don't know. Because Frank always just tries to weasel out of his moral standards. He just goes, well, I don't know if this is moral. Why not? You're claiming you have objective morality. Why don't you know if it's right or wrong? That's Frank Turek for you. He's in it to make a buck, I swear.
No, I am. I have experiences and data to back it up.
Okay, well, I'm sorry that people have treated you poorly. But
you don't have to go on and spread these bigoted viewpoints on YouTube and Facebook like you do. It's just a bunch of misinformation. You have no idea. You have blood on your hands.
Okay, Mav. Do you want to have a conversation, or you just want
No, I really just would like you to just apologize and turn around and see that what you're doing is harmful.
Mav, there's only harm if God exists. Harm is only evil if God exists. And so you're stealing
harm regardless if God exists or not.
Thank you, Mav. You're not interested.
Yeah, so I get why they are upset. He basically brought up LGBTQ. Obviously Mav has probably suffered a lot at the hands of Christians, as a lot of people have. The perpetrators of bullying and torture for these people have not been secular humanists. Okay? They've been Christians or Muslims, theists. So, how you can sit there and say that Christians have objective morality and torture people? Really? Really? And like he said, forced conversion therapy is considered torture. It is. It is. Because they're unwillingly being subjected to psychological manipulation that is not good for them.
Thank you for coming. Hey, Mav, if I gave you a book, would you read it?
Is it on Audible? I have severe ADHD.
I don't have an Audible with me, but
Is it on any type of like written, like?
I'll tell you what, if you go
what's
back
the text to speech?
if you go back there and you give Evan at the table your email address, I will email you personally.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. And by the way, before we go to the next question, now that I have a chance to speak here, I appreciate people coming here who have a different point of view, but it's got to be a dialogue. It can't be a monologue. And I think that, yes, people who identify as LGBTQ have been treated poorly.
But by you, Frank, who's been treating them poorly? Yeah, like this whole thing of regret is just like, oh yeah, they've been treated because of you. You did this. You have spoken badly about them like they are not, that they ought not to do that, and they are being immoral and sinful. You've said this, Frank. You're the reason. But you still want to claim to be moral, even though, oh, they've been treated poorly. Yeah.
But I also think now that Christians are being treated poorly.
Oh.
And both of them are wrong.
No, Christians are not being treated poorly. When has somebody gone to a Christian and said, because you are a Christian, you are sinful and evil and you deserve to be tortured forever and ever and ever and ever? Show me that. Show me that. Like, we're talking about people who have religious people physically beat them for simply being different than you and not loving the people you do, or loving the people you expect them to love. Show me that happening to Christians. Because it's not happening from the LGBTQI on Christians. It's not, okay? They're not roaming around yelling stuff at Christians, getting in their face, beating them. This isn't happening. Hate crime comes from the Christians, not from the LGBTQI community, okay? Let's get that straight, because this is so disingenuous. What is happening with the rejection of Christianity as an authoritative function of society is not persecution, okay? It's just saying, hey, the church has done a lot of bad. Less people are believing in it. You don't get to tell everybody what they should do. That's it. You're still got a stage. You can still speak about whatever you want, but don't pretend that the persecution of LGBTQI people and Christians is the same thing.
We ought to respect people, even if we disagree with them. But that's a moral category. And respect only makes sense as a moral category if there's a moral standard beyond us.
No. Because I know in order to have a healthy society, we need to have respect for the people around us. That's it. I could arbitrarily decide that I want a healthy society. All in all, a healthy society is better for me. I like having a healthy society. An unhealthy society is terrible. But when I look at a healthy society, I go, hey, sociologists, our happiness index, we can tell that people that are fulfilled have these kind of, an option for social climbing or movement around socially. People that are not shamed for the way they are, things like that, that will lend to the healthiness of a society. You're basically going, oh, this is good for the healthiness of society because God says so. Great. Show me that's objective. Because when we do the actual studies, it doesn't seem like it's good at all. Sexual repression does not get you to a good society. I'll give you that tip right now.
Otherwise, everything's just a matter of opinion. If somebody says,
well, no, because I can change my opinion on stealing, for instance. And it doesn't change the morality of the society. I'm still being immoral within that society. It doesn't change at all in any way, shape, or form. If I can argue and show people that stealing is good for the society's cohesion and healthiness, maybe I would be able to get it established as something we do. But that would require a change of reality that stealing things is good for the social cohesion of society. And that's just not the case. Like, this is the thing. It's, yeah.
Says gay is good, that's a matter of opinion. If somebody says gay is bad, that's a matter of opinion. Yeah.
I don't think anyone's saying gay is good or gay is bad. Sorry, I'll amend that. I don't think anyone's saying gay is good. I think we're just saying gay is a thing. Let's respect them. Let's give them every opportunity, the same rights that everybody else does, that everybody else has. And you're jumping up and down going, but we're the Christians. We get to decide what's right and wrong. Not anymore, chummy. Your time is done. This whole idea that the church can basically lay down the law for everybody around them because they have a belief, it is donezo, finished, over. We're now going to look at what the consequences for oughts are and say, hey, will this promote health in a society, or is this going to be a tragedy? That's all we need to do. That's all we need to do.
Have to have a standard. My question to anybody who disagrees is, what is your moral standard?
Yeah.
If there is no God, there's no rights to anything. There's no Christian rights. There's no.
No, that's not true. We can look at what fundamentally people need to be healthy. If human health and well-being, okay, human well-being, we can say, hey, human well-being is the physical and mental health of humans and human society. Now, we've got to balance those two, but we can say the social contract offers rights, like we all have a right to autonomy. We all have a right to personal integrity. We all have a right to, even just the basics like food and water and shelter, right? We all have a right to this. In exchange for the government providing those rights, we basically go, okay, in exchange for those rights, you can make laws to govern all of us. This is social contract theory. Very, very simple. We agree to do what the government says as long as they don't infringe on that right. As soon as they start infringing on those rights, social contract is over. And then things get serious. That's the find out part of the fuck around. And if you want to know how it goes, look at the French Revolution. If you want to know what the find out part is like.
Gay rights, there's no transgender rights, there's no human rights. It's just one person's opinion.
No, it's a social construct that exists agreed upon by everybody. This is the thing. There's kind of like, the law is a social construct. Hell, America is a social construct. It's like saying, well, if the idea of America, the borders and the idea of what America means isn't objective, then it just isn't a thing at all. Of course it is. People agree on it. It's not somewhere, like it doesn't exist really. It's just an agreed upon social construct between people, like the law is. The law isn't objective. It doesn't exist somewhere outside of, human perception and writing it down. It doesn't exist in reality, but the law exists. It is a social construct, and this is very basic stuff. Like, this is very basic.
Against another. And when we say we're atheists and we start bringing moral categories into the conversation, I'm going to ask, what's the standard you're using?
Yeah, I've given it already. It's just basically saying, hey, because atheists don't have an objective moral standard, it's not a standard at all. Wrong. We don't have an objective standard for laws either, but they're there. And there's only, if you want to say, oh, but that's based on Christian morals. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. There's only 2 of the 10 commandments that made it into law, and all of the rest of them didn't. Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not murder. That's it. The rest of them didn't even make it in. And I might add, the first commandment, thou shalt have no other God but me, is against the law to enforce that. So no, the laws aren't based on your morals. They're based upon society's morals. Which, yeah, Christians had an influence on that. So did a lot of other things. So, you steal our morals. Come on, dude. Seriously? Like, I would never say that Christianity didn't have a huge influence on modern life. I think I'd be lying if I didn't. But considering the West at one point was like 99.99% Christian, I think that, you know, of course it did. But there were definitely other things that did as well, like the golden age of Islam sort of gave us, transferred our number system from India. India is the source of our numbering system. Mathematics came from India. Sorry, not from Christianity, from Hinduism. Sorry. You know, the laws of logic were Aristotelian. I hate to break it to you. He was not a Christian. He was an ancient Greek. He wasn't Christian. There's a lot of stuff, like even democracy was imported from ancient Greece. Yeah, their system was very different. It was more to do with citizens' suffrage or landowners' suffrage, but it was imported from Greece. Like, what we have today is a melting pot of a lot of different things. And for somebody to claim, hey, you stole it from us, get out of here, man. Like, seriously, you stole your religion from Judaism. How about that? Oh, it's you know, Judeo-Christian, it's the same thing. No, well, the Jews don't see it that way. They don't see it that way at all. So, yeah. Anyway, I think that'll do. I was going to do a third one, but I do feel a bit tired, I'll be honest with you. So I hope you've enjoyed. I've had a blast. It's great to see everybody. I will put another link to the Ark Encounter video. If you do want to support Joe and his ever-present quest to cook the ham, to cook Ken Ham, to leave him cooked well and good. That is the Ark Encounter protest. All of the links you need are in the description of that. If you do have any thoughts about what I've said, I really do love to hear people's thoughts about what I've said. And if you do have any disagreements, or if you think that I'm wrong about anything, please do leave a comment. I always enjoy them. Even though I may not get to them for a while, that's my ADHD brain just going haywire. But I want to thank everybody so much. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave comments, share, rub it on your junk. I don't mind. Just engage in some way. I'm trying to do more of that, but yeah, I will set something up as a kind of just a fun little interaction for the stream members. So a big thank you to Luke and Deviant Outcast for coming in with the stuff. I've had a blast. Hope you have too. Don't forget to be kind to yourself. A lot of times we stop being kind to ourselves and we take care of others. Take care of yourself. Be kind to each other. And I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.